Good afternoon, my friends. This is Paul, and welcome to my 4th annual Worst Games of the Year list, where I'll be looking at the worst games that came out in 2022 for the Nintendo Switch. Now, when I say worst, it's kind of a loose term in this case, as I would say underwhelming is a more accurate descriptor, as I was so burnt out by Lost Lands Dark Overlord in 2021 that I vowed after that game that I would try as hard as I could to really not play any games that could even potentially be stinkers. And I'd like to think that I mostly succeeded this year. I also am well aware that some of my picks are going to be controversial this year, but I mean, one, it's my opinion, I'm allowed to say what I want. And two, if you really are so put off by my choices and you don't want this video to be seen by others, then don't hit the like or the dislike button and don't comment, because your engagement with this video actually helps the algorithm. So just turn it off right away. Don't bother entertaining my delusions any longer. So without further ado, let's get into the 11 stinkers of the year. At number 11, we have, as a broad umbrella of games, the Humongous Entertainment ports that came out. Now, I have really fond memories of these games, as they were some of the first that I played when I was really young. And I remember there was even a time where I boycotted video games except for these games, because I believed that the only video games that should exist are the ones that are educational, and I've definitely come a long way since then. However, I didn't want this list to be redundant, as just listing the Humongous Entertainment games would probably take up half the list. So I decided I'll just put Freddy Fish 3 as the worst game here, because that was kind of underwhelming compared to the other Humongous games that came out. I was actually, for a time, considering even putting Spy Fox and Dry Cereal on my best games list, but other good games came out that surpassed it. That's how much I adore these games. But the main reason they're on the worst games list is because they were very poorly optimized for the Switch. They didn't really change anything. They even have a terrible aspect ratio, the sound effects are still compressed, and when Freddy Fish 3 launched, it didn't even have music. So that indicates to me that they were probably just haphazardly put on the Switch to make a quick dollar, and they didn't really care about quality assurance. So I hope that if future Humongous Entertainment games get released on the Switch, that they're at the very least put into widescreen and HD, maybe have a couple of quality of life features, but not just put there as a nostalgia piece and nothing more than that. At number 10, we have Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. The reason why it's so high on this list is because I actually had a decent amount of time with Fall Guys. It was an okay romp through obstacle courses with 59 other players, and it was free. The fact that I'm stretching myself to try to come up with positive things is the reason why I put it on my worst games list, as this game's launch was an absolute disaster. It was announced back in 2021, then it was delayed, and even after the delay, they still couldn't get it right. The Switch version has extremely laggy other people. The game lags to begin with on the menu, and especially when you're trying to type in friend codes. Even trying to play with friends that are all on the Switch either doesn't work or says that someone's online when they aren't, or the person will clearly be online but it says that they aren't. And one of my friends even had to delete one of her accounts and email customer support, and the fact that such problems existed even after a delay makes me wonder if the team was under some kind of crunch, or either they just didn't foresee all of these issues. And I don't want to entirely blame them, as based on what I've heard, they don't seem like an evil corporation. or anything like that. But even if it wasn't for the disastrous launch, I still just think Fall Guys doesn't have the same appeal to me as Kirby's Dream Buffet. Yes, that game may not have as much variety as Fall Guys, but it also has more moments that add up to it being a pleasant experience. Fall Guys is kind of an ugly game. The ragdoll physics can make it kind of annoying. If you're hit by anything, you lose so much momentum. There's not really any power-ups or ways to possibly catch up if you lose. And once you're eliminated, it's another drag back to the main menu so that you can hurry up and wait for 59 people to load in. And probably the worst part is that it doesn't have an offline mode. So you are absolutely required to play this with other people online. So I think that maybe if the game had had an offline mode and a story mode and a way to offset all the technical problems, maybe it would have been on my best games list. But as it stands, I think that after all of the hype that the original Fall Guys garnered, they failed to bring that momentum back when it came on the Switch. Number 9 is Pac-Man Museum Plus, another game high on the list because this is a collection of Pac-Man games, some of which I actually liked quite a lot. Pac-Man 256 was pretty fun. The fact that I'm struggling to name the games that were pretty fun is probably indicative of why it's on my worst games list. But the main reason it didn't get on the best games list is because most of the games were either or flat out terrible. Pac-In-Time in particular is a disastrous platformer that definitely deserved to stay in Japan. I can see why it didn't have an international release until now. The controls are awful. The level design is atrocious. There's too many requirements to get these tiny little Pac dots. And I just think Pac-Man as a platformer probably deserved so much better of a design. Then there was the original Pac-Man, which is alright, but it also doesn't have an option for Pac-Man to stop, and it's just an endless arcade grabber. Then Super Pac-Man and Pac-N-Pal were just weird. And I could go on because this is a collection of tons and tons of Pac-Man games. And while I will admit that it is fun to customize the arcade and hear a bunch of remixes of classic Pac-Man tunes, and it is nice that they included so many games, I think the fact that most of the games I didn't really like, and the fact that I'm just not much of a Pac-Man fan made me realize I probably shouldn't have reviewed this game in the first place, but I figured maybe it won't be that bad. Well, I will keep that in mind for the future, and I will try to save my Pac-Man games for something that is really out of this world. Number 8 is Cyber Protocol Prologue. Again, a game that's not necessarily bad, but underwhelming. So this game actually does have a priced equivalent, but it's listed as a free game on the eShop with the remainder of the levels as paid DLC. I'm not always a big fan of when they do that, as you'll see later in the list. Cyber Protocol Prologue is kinda like Pac-Man Speedy Edition, where you have to get through a top-down maze and try to reach the end, although you don't really need any of the collectibles. And you move so fast that you have to have really good reflexes and thinking ahead. One false move, and you're either back to the start or back to a checkpoint. And that's if you can even find the checkpoint, because sometimes it either blends in or you're so busy trying to pay attention to everything else that you just don't see it. And even though I had fun with this, and the first couple of levels are free, I also think that's it. There's nothing better than this in the free version. Like, you take Deltarune, the first 2 chapters felt like completed games, and yet they were only a demo. And the fact that this game can't even come close to Deltarune status kind of makes me sad. Maybe the paid levels are a lot better, but considering that it's yet another maze game, I don't think I can see myself ever wanting to continue, especially if the checkpoints are spread out as thin as in the free version. Oh boy, at this point the dislikes are going to come pouring in, and I am probably going to get people boycotting the video, but I'm going to say it anyway. Number 7 is Nier Automata, the End of Yorha edition. This game was so hyped by most of the people on the internet as one of the greatest games ever. Nintendo Life, I believe, even gave it a 9 or a 10 and said, you shouldn't even look up information about this game, you should just play it. But I decided not to listen, and I looked up how many endings there were, and I was like, no way am I playing this game any more than I have to, because I was so burnt out after the first playthrough, and then I heard that the second playthrough is basically the same as the first, but with even less move variety, and this weird hacking minigame, and then basically, I thought the game was overhyped. I think the combat was pretty fun, and I liked most of the music, but I also didn't like the fact that the map was really confusing. The story didn't make a whole lot of sense. From what I've heard, it's based on a lot of philosophical, existential theming, which is not really my thing. I don't really get existentialism at all. I think that's kind of a waste of time to think about. And from what I've heard from all of the spoilers, I wasn't missing a whole lot, although the gimmick with the credits was pretty cool, I will admit that. Basically, it seems like the kind of game that because it's philosophical, people are automatically going to like it. But I personally think that a game can be philosophical and get it right. Just take a look at the Stanley Parable if you want to know an example of where a philosophical game caught my attention. But Nier Automata just has so many problems that people overlook in favor of what it does right, of which I think the negatives overweigh the positives. Now, to be fair, I am grateful that one of my followers gave me this game for free so that I was able to review it, so I don't want to sound like I'm ungrateful, but I don't think he could have predicted how much I wouldn't enjoy it. I'm sorry that a gift from one of my followers had to be so bad, but I just can't find myself willing to play this game any more than the third playthrough. And yes, I watched the spoilers. I wasn't missing much. At number 6, we have Beanie. This was made by the same guy who made the Tori games and also MacBat 64, which were all pretty decent platformers, and I thought, I think I might have a pretty good time with this. And I even saved up enough gold points to get it for free, so I thought, well, if I'm getting it for free, I might as well review it. And even though I do think that the controls were really well optimized, I also think that this game is so basic that it had to be on my worst games list because, again, compared to my top 10 list, it's pretty underwhelming. All you do is you jump from platform to platform as you're continually scrolling up, while the game introduces more obstacles along the way. While that premise seems decent enough, there's also a variety of problems that hold it back. The graphics feel like they're trying to be Donkey Kong Country, but failing to have the revolutionary technique that it did back in the 90s. There's also this really weird sound that sounds like a lot of cicadas that even plays when you're on the map screen that I think was trying to be atmospheric, but it ends up being distracting instead. And then just when the game starts getting good, when near the end you get to play as Kiwi, that particular level has some really weird glitches when you turn the camera at the wrong angle. The camera is inverted, the color palette is all orange and brown and ugly, and it fails to live up to what made Kiwi 64 so great. From what I've heard, Super Kiwi 64 is coming out in December, but I didn't want to crunch this list, so I figured it would probably be on my worst games list anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and record. Overall, Beanie is fun for the first couple of seconds, but it doesn't hold that much lasting appeal. Then again, it's also very reasonably priced, so you might have a decent time, just don't expect that decent time to last for very long. At number 5, we have the pizza delivery boy who saved the world. At this point in the list, we're getting to The games that I genuinely did not like, that I'm not just saying they're underwhelming, that they're flat out bad and disappointing. In the case of the Pizza Delivery Boy, it had an interesting premise of being a pizza guy who meets a version of himself from the future. And the story doesn't take itself too seriously. It's pretty wacky. And it does have pretty realistic cutouts of the characters, as well as environments that were probably based on real locations. But that doesn't disguise the fact that it's another Ratalaika game with their usual problems of having a terrible job differentiating the colors of the options you're doing, as well as just a general bland design for its UI. It's just another visual novel with hardly anything to set it apart from other visual novels, such as, say, Zero Escape, where it had the escape rooms and the amazing story. Well, its story is okay if you want a story to be really silly, but there's not really a whole lot of consequence or anything else to do. Like, if you make the wrong decision, you can just rewind and do something else. I got the true ending on my first try, and then the game overs felt like, you'd have to be kind of trying to get those if you really weren't paying attention to the story. And overall, I just thought that pretty much the only thing that was redeeming about it was that it was all about pizza, which is my favorite food. I think that Ratalaika games probably oversaturates the Switch market with too many samey visual novels, and I hope one day they branch out into other territory, because they've started getting me to want to boycott their games, and overexposure of cheap indie games is probably not what the Switch eShop needs right now. At number 4, we have Sonic Origins. My gosh, this game was rushed so much that the developer headcanon had to send out a whole bunch of tweets saying how disappointed he was and how Sega really pressured him to get it done on time, so a crunched game, go figure. And the game just brought along a whole host of technical problems that didn't exist in the original games. Now, I didn't encounter as many glitches as other people, so I can't really talk about how buggy and messed up it was compared to others. But I can say that after watching countless amounts of people complaining about Sonic Origins, I can really see where they're coming from. The DLC structure was absolutely horrendous, with this weird chart of this is what you get and don't get with each individual purchase. Thankfully, they simplified it quite a lot for the Switch with just the regular version, the digital deluxe version, and DLC for some of the songs. But the thing is, they did false advertising on the eShop where they said they were remastered tracks when really all they were just the soundtracks of Sonic Spinball, Knuckles Chaotix, and Sonic 3D Blast, and they weren't even labeled correctly. There's also the fact that I didn't like half of the games in this collection. Sonic CD is one of the worst Sonic games I've ever played, with a labyrinthine level design and a game that nearly made me want to give up had I not wanted to review Sonic Origins as a whole. Sonic 1 was just too corridor-based and too slow, especially in the Labyrinth Zone with all of its underwater mechanics. And while you could argue, they couldn't do much with the source material, I also think that you can polish a game and redesign it so that it's more accessible. Like, they have an anniversary mode, so couldn't they have had remixed levels along the lines of Sonic Mania? So I can't really fault the original games for having bad level design, but I can fault Sega for crunching the team so much that they couldn't make this the ultimate Sonic game collection. Now, you could easily just go ahead and buy cheaper alternatives of these games. Oh wait, apparently on the other platforms they delisted the older games. At least on the Switch you can still get the Sega Ages port, and I think the Sega Genesis Classic still exists, but man, I feel sorry for everyone else who had $4, $5 equivalents, in some case free, and now they're stuck with this. Number 3 is Nintendo Switch Sports. Had I not been doing a collab, this would have been number 2. And the main reason why I despise this game so much is because I couldn't even play it. I tried to rent it and see if maybe it was actually fun, and just because it wasn't Wii Sports Resort, it still could have been a good time. But I was met with a screen that said, please update your controllers. And I couldn't even get past 0%. And I think I waited at least a half hour, and it still didn't even get to 1%. And then I finally figured out, oh, it's because my controllers are third party, so therefore they don't even work. So I couldn't even play the game, and in order for me to even review it, I had to ask Miss Peggle to write out a script for me, and then I think even after she wrote her script praising the game, she went back and was like, yeah, it's not really that great. And even besides the fact that I couldn't play it for myself, from what I've seen, of which it doesn't take that much effort to see everything this game has to offer, it feels so underwhelming and unfinished compared to Wii Sports Resort. Whereas that game had like 24 different activities you could do, this game had 6 at launch. The original Wii Sports only had 5, so that's not too much more. They had to delay golf, and then an update ended up causing the game to have so many bugs that Nintendo had to turn off the online mode for a bit. The game puts a heavy focus on online play in order to get the unlockables, and in order to play offline mode, you have to jump through a bunch of hoops to even get that to work. Not to mention that they replaced the Mii's, sort of. You can still put on a Mii's head. Ooh, that's so exciting. To be replaced with sports mates, which you have to unlock most of the options to customize them when that was available for free on the Wii itself without even having a game. The sports themselves, maybe they control okay, but they don't feel like they're as creative and have as much love poured into them as they did in Wii Sports Resort. Not to mention that Spoko Square, the new central hub location, it feels like it has potential. You know, it feels like a giant shopping mall, but you can't explore it. And it feels like it's just there as a background rather than a genuine location that could make for a great stage in Smash, like Woohoo Island was. And Wii Sports Resort actually did give you options to explore the island, so why wasn't that a thing here? And even if they are going to add more sports in the future as free updates, I think the damage has already been done, with this game being such a disaster that I can't see Nintendo being able to get back in the good graces of even the most diehard Nintendo apologists. If Nintendo's going to continue trying to regain the legacy of the Wii Sports names, I think they should actually remember what Wii Sports Resort was in the first place, and try not to distance themselves so much that they go back to feeling like a tech demo like the original Wii Sports was. Take a hint, aspiring game developers. If you want to make a sequel, don't make it feel more like the first game than an evolvement. Evolvement, what the heck, Paul? The word is evolution. At number 2, we have Opus Castle. My gosh, this game is so annoying that I don't even know where to start. For starters, its build is free on the eShop, and then you have to pay for the other chapters as DLC, which only Chapter 2 is available for purchase. Apparently there's going to be 6 chapters, but the eShop gives no indication of when they're going to be released. Chapter 1 is over with so quickly that I just barely had enough footage to be able to make the review. And the game just feels like it's broken, unfinished, and not really feeling like a whole lot of love was put into it. Like, sure, the graphics are pretty okay for a free game. And I feel like it has some potential, you know, being based on a true story of an actual haunting. But the controls are abysmal with me figuring out what I had to do. A lot of times the objects that you had to find were really small. Sometimes you would have to leave the area and return to get them. And I can only imagine how buggy the later chapters are going to be. I was so disappointed by Opus Castle that I think I'm probably going to boycott free games on the Switch eShop going forward so that I don't end up playing any more stinkers like this. But if you think this game is awful, wait till you see what Miss Peggle has to say about the #1 worst game of the year. I don't think she actually thinks it's the worst game of 2022, but in my opinion, I personally think it is, so that's why I'm having her close out the video. So before I let Peggle take over, I want to thank my patrons Matthew Rakowski, Sploon Ghost, and Splatcat for supporting me financially. You guys are such a big help in this trying time. And if you want to join my Patreon yourself, the link is in the description. So until you're ready to watch Peggle's clip, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Let's hope that she does a good job of convincing you all that this next game is utter trash and Game Freak got to be fired. Bye for now.
Alright, hello everyone. My name is Miss Peggle and this is not my video. This isn't my channel. I am helping Paul with a video of the worst games of 2022. And as you can see from the game, you're probably gasping and going, what? How could Peggle choose a Pokemon game as the worst game of 2022? It's not the worst game, it's just a pretty bad game. For many reasons. So I thought I would come in and just, talk about the reasons as to why I'm not the biggest fan of this game. So I will get this out of the way. I really like the story, okay? I think the story is really cool. I think it's really interesting. I think it's a great way to make you enjoy Pokemon a little bit more. I mean, you're separating the story into 3 different parts and then merging it all together right with the post-game stuff. Like, I think that's pretty cool. So for those who have been living under a rock, you should you should know what Pokemon is, but if you don't, it's just little guys, catching Pokemon, fighting with them. They're fighting for you, all that sort of stuff. But if you don't know what Pokemon Scarlet or its variation Pokemon Violet, it's basically where we are in the Paldea region, which is a little hint and nod to Spanish rituals. Not rituals. Oh my goodness, Spanish like Spanish place. So it's in like Spain. It's the culture of Spain. Because we see a lot of hola, vámonos, all the Spanish language, all that sort of stuff. I mean, there's even a language in this. There's even a class in this game where you can literally learn Spanish and other languages as well. But basically, you're a kid that is joining an academy. Either I'm gonna butcher these words, Nanjara, I think it's called for Scarlet, Uva for Violet, and basically the main gist of the game is you are off to find your treasure. So like I said, that could be many different ways to that. So you could have the original way of doing it, which is doing all the gyms, getting all the gym badges, beating the Elite Four and the champion. But this time in this game, you're not just the champion, you're one of many champions. For example, your rival or your neighbor is already a champion, and she's just telling you, like, you can do this, like, you can be a champion, all that sort of stuff. So that's her kind of thing. We've got another playthrough of a story called The Path of Legends. So the gym one's called Victory Road, this one's called the other one's called Path of Legends, and it's where you are with another character who you're fighting giant titans to get some herbs, and these herbs actually help your legendary, this is my legendary in Scarlet, Coridon, become pretty much itself again in a way. But there's also another reason as to why we're getting herbs. Also, obviously, I'm not going to talk about it because you actually find out in the game if you play it yourself. And then there's another playthrough which is called, I believe it's called the Starfall Road, something like that. I don't know, I can't fully remember. So in each Pokemon game there is a team, there's a sort of team that just likes to annoy us. Everyone might remember the Team Rocket, they're the most famous ones. Sword and Shield, there was... why do I not remember them all of a sudden? I don't remember, there was a team in that one, they were really annoying. This one is called Team Star. Now, normally it'd be like just really annoying guys, but actually there's a really nice story behind the Team Stars, and I'm obviously not going to spoil what it is, but it's really nice, and I actually really enjoyed it. But yeah, those are the three main stories, and once you complete them all, right at the for the post-game stuff, it all comes together as one. So I thought that's a really cool thing to do. Some of the animation in this is actually not too bad. Like real, like actual animation scenes, like important scenes. I think those are pretty well done. The characters, the way the characters are designed, are honestly my favorite design choice for in Pokemon. Like, I think they look really good. Obviously, you can't see on my character at the moment, but if you look really closely at her, her shirt has actually been. It's kind of hard to see. Well, the pants you can tell. But it's actually detailed a lot. The outfits, the hairstyles, it's all really detailed a lot of a character, like a person. So I think that's really cool. But of course, this is a worst game of 2022. So I have to explain why I think it's bad. First off, I think it's pretty obvious just by looking at that mountain. This game has one of the worst graphics I've seen in a Pokemon game. This is worse than Sword and Shield. I mean, look at that. That looks like it belongs on a Wii game or a GameCube. Am I right, guys? So, literally, this game was announced, I think, like January, February this year, and then it comes out in November. I was a bit concerned, but I thought, okay, it's Game Freak, it's Pokemon. These guys are actually pretty good. Okay. These guys are actually pretty good at making pretty nice games, so maybe they'll do really well with this game, because I was really excited. I was like, oh man, I hope they make this game really cool, because it felt like it was going to be like a Breath of the Wild sort of game. Open world, all that sort of stuff. But it came out, and I mean, look how disgusting it is. If you haven't seen online, there is many glitches, many bugs, many soft locks. There is there's a thing at the moment called the memory leak, which if your game doesn't, it will break and it won't save for a while, and your game will crash. So make sure your game's on autosave, or you've saved every now and then, more often than usual, because then your game might crash and you might lose your stuff. I have mine on autosave, so I'm pretty safe with that. So see, even that, look at that. It's showing the underground. So yeah, that's pretty bad. The graphics are really bad. I hope they fix it at some point, because if they don't, I swear, like, this is going to really do stuff bad. It's gone so bad as to, I wonder if this works. No. Let me try. One of the sometimes in the mountains, if you're too far away and then you get close. No. In one of these sometimes the mountains, they'll be when you're far away, it looks fine, but when you get close to it, it actually moves, which is a horrible way to do stuff. I have many videos of nope. I have many videos of me glitching out, which I'll probably show. There you go. That's one common glitch. Very, very common glitch. Here is me playing with a friend who built up a picnic, and I glitched into it. And this was another glitch I found. This Pokemon was trying to hide in the wall, and he failed very, very, very miserably at it. So that's that gist of it. But yeah, there's a lot of glitches, there's a lot of bugs, there's a lot of horrible things going on at the moment. So I really hope that Nintendo or Game Freak can fix this, because I mean, Game Freak is one of the most is the most one of the richest companies, and yet they make something like this. Like, it's quite disappointing, to be honest. And a lot of people have actually been asking refunds for this game because of how bad it is. So I hope they see this. I hope they realize it. And I hope they fix it. Because, geez, they really, really, really need to fix this. Otherwise people are just going to go meh. But a lot of people have been able to overcome all these stuff because, you know, it's a new Pokemon game. There's a new gen. They really want to enjoy it, and I can admit, great story, really great story, but I seriously think that all of these glitches, all these bugs, the designs, the depth perception, all that sort of stuff, if they can fix it with like an update or a DLC for graphics or something like that, then maybe this game could do so much better, because I really want this game to get out there, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, other than that, that is pretty much it, all I have to say about this game. Obviously I'm not going to bash it so much because I do enjoy this game, of course. They just need to fix quite a few stuff, graphics wise, performance wise, all that sort of stuff. And they had a while to do it, so they could have pulled it off, but they didn't. The trailers made it look like this game was going to be beautiful, but kind of lied to us. But yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed my little snippet of it. I hope you guys enjoyed Paul's video games as well. Hopefully they didn't make you mad too much. But because I am ending this video, I'm going to be a silly and butcher Paul's outro. So excuse me while I probably mix it all up and do it wrong, but oh well. So yes, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and I will see you guys another time. Catches!